to improve microbes, not just finding what nature gave us, but editing their genomes.
Their superheroes microbes.
Yep.
To clean this mess.
How they were doing it, which genes switch on, and what pathways they use to break down the oil.
Tiny creatures, but they are actually a powerful environmental allies.
And we get to learn about them even in details.
And what's really wild about genomics, they didn't just tell us they were there, it showed exactly how they were doing.
Hi everyone, welcome to Biopuffcast. I'm Azira.
I'm Afifa.
Masana here.
And I'm Aiza, and I'm very excited about today's topic.
Me too, and I hope it's gonna be fun and can fit the starving brain.
So, what are we diving into today?
Alright everyone, grab your snacks and drinks, because today we're going to talk about something that might sound super scientific, functional genomics and proteomics. But trust us, we're going to keep it simple, clear and really interesting.
Yeah, don't let the fancy words scare you off. Basically, these are like the tools that help scientists figure out how living things like microbes, plants, animals respond to the environment.
Imagine it like this. Genomics is like reading the blueprints, which is the full instruction manual written in DNA, and proteomics is like checking out the team of workers that is actually building and doing stuff, which is proteins.
Exactly. And when you combine those two, scientists can actually understand not just what's supposed to happen, but what is actually happening. Especially when it's exposed to stress, like pollutants, toxins, and climate change.
So today we're going to explore how these researchers use powerful tools to solve real-world problems. We're going to talk about how microbes helps restore the ecosystem health, how they use in bioremediation, and how all of this support conservation efforts to protect our planet on the long run.
It's kind of like giving microbes a mission, then like using genomics and proteomics to track their progress, see what tools they're using, and how they're reacting to the environment and around them.
We'll also be sharing some cool case study, like bacteria that can break down oil using genes, which we didn't know existed, and then insect that helps in fighting the heavy metal pollution.
So yeah, whether you're a science nerd or just curious about how nature helps us to fix things the mess that we made, this episode is for you.
Let's get started.
Alright, let's start things off with genomics, which might sound a little bit sciencey at first, but trust me, it's actually pretty cool once you get into it.
Yeah, so genomics is basically the study of all DNA in living things. And when it comes to microbes, a tiny living organism that live in our soil, water, and air, genomics help us figure out who's there and what they can do.
It's kind of like doing a background check on every microbe in the neighborhood, but instead of knocking on doors, scientists just need to scoop out a soil or water and sequence the DNA in it.
Right, and they don't even need to grow the microbes in the lab. Genomics lets you scan through all the genetic material at once, so you get the big picture of what kind of microscopic life is hanging around and what jobs they are doing.
Which is super useful if you're trying to figure out whether the environment is stressed or healthy. Or if you're like trying to help it bounce back like after pollution or deforestation.
You know, one really interesting example of this, back in 2023, scientists were digging around soil that had been contaminated with oil, like the kind of places where nothing good would usually grow. And what they found is really surprising. They found 3 brand new bacteria that living in that soil.
Wow.
So those bacteria are actually from Mycobacterium family.
Wait, isn't that tuberculosis was caused by the bacteria from that family?
Well, that is another strain. But these guys are the good ones. So scientists didn't just stop at the finding space. They took a step further by sequencing their DNA. kind of like giving a bacteria full body scan and figure out what they're capable of, and what they found is really wild. This bacteria has a superpower, which we called it special gene, that allow them to break down really harmful chemicals called PAH, which short for phylocyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. Basically nasty chemicals lah. You'll find this usually in oil spills, fuel leaks, in smoke, industrial waste, those places. They're very toxic to human and animals, the environment. But for this bacteria, it's like their lunch. They eat it.
Wow.
And like, so one of these good guys called Mycobacterium adipetum, he can even break down plastic-related chemicals, which called phthalates, which are found in all kinds of plastic products. Basically, this microbe can help clean up oil, fuel, plastic pollution without needing us to use harsh chemicals or expensive machine. And you know the best part of this? It gives us insight exactly which gene are responsible of how we might use or even improve them for future cleanup missions. It's a great example of how genomics, using DNA to understand life, can help us tackle real-world environment problem. So yeah, in the dirt, we can find answers, and even the tiniest organism that you probably cannot see, not probably, you cannot really see about that those tiny guys can serve the planets.
So without even seeing the microbe using microscope,
Yeah.
the scientists can say, "Oh, these microbes can clean up the mess." That's the power of genomics.
That's really amazing. And there's actually another cool case study about this, which is the Deep Water Horizon oil spill in 2010. It is known to be the largest oil spill in the world. And after the spill, scientists used metagenomics to look at what was happening in the Gulf of Mexico. And they actually found that certain bacteria basically stepped in and munching the oil, like nature's cleanup crew. Wow. Bacteria like Alcanivarax and Cycloplasticus just exploded in number. And with genomics, researchers figured out exactly which genes these bacteria were using to break down the oil. So we weren't just guessing, it was backed up by hard DNA data. And what's even cooler is that now that we can predict which microbes in the ocean have those cleanup abilities before an oil spill even happens. Scientists are kind of like building a microbial database, figuring out which microbes live where and what pollutants they can eat. It's like having a superhero directory. Like, oh, this beach has bacteria that goes on.
Wow. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So instead of using humans, like instead of us humans using machine and chemicals to clean up this stuff, the ocean basically called their superheroes microbes to clean this mess. So bacteria, even though they are in small numbers, but the oil spill, that the lunch they used to eat, gave them the perfect environment to thrive, to get straight to work, to multiply, to become more. Yeah.
And what's really wild about genomics, they didn't just tell us they were there, it showed exactly how they were doing it, which genes switch on, and what pathways they use to break down the oil. It gave scientists this super detailed picture of how nature can start healing itself if the right microbes were present.
Now here is something super exciting, which is the eDNA or environmental DNA. That's when you can just take a water sample and then it tells you what the organism or animals have been there. It's like a genetic footprint.
Exactly, from just water, fish, corals, jellyfish, or even whales. You don't even need to see them. If they swam by, they probably left some DNA behind.
And it's way easier and safer than using the net because this is more safer for the endangered species or hard to find species. So yeah, genomics might seem to be a big word, but it's really about listening to the nature's internal system, especially the stuff we can't see with our eyes.
Exactly. Instead of just being a good listener, they give us eco surveys. Like when you apply it to microbes, you start to see just how much life is happening underground or underwater, helping to keep the ecosystem running.
It's an amazing tool for the scientists who want to protect the nature, clean up the pollution, or just understand how everything is connected.
And that brings us to our next big tool, Proteomics, where we stop looking at the instruction manual and start seeing what's actually being built and used. Stick around for that, it's pretty awesome.
Alright, now that we've talked about genomics, the instruction manual side of the microbes, let's move on to what they're actually doing out in the wild. That's where proteomics comes in.
Yeah, if genomic is about the blueprint, the proteomic is all about the action. It's the study of the proteins, the little machine and workers inside the cell that carry out jobs like breaking down pollutants, fighting stress, or helping the microbe to survive.
So instead of just asking what genes could they use, we are asking what tools are they using right now. And that's super important when it comes to things like bioremediation and monitoring ecosystem health.
And since proteins respond in real time, proteomics give us kind of like a live update of how microbes are reacting to the environment, especially when they are exposed to heavy metals, oil, or other pollutants.
Let's look at two case studies that highlight how proteomics can be used to detect early sublethal stress in aquatic organisms exposed to pollutants. First, we have the study by Martin Folga and Martinez Cotard. They investigate how the aquatic insect Chironomus riparis, a kind of fly, responds to cadmium exposure, a heavy metal known for its toxicity. Remarkably, they found that within just a few hours, genes encoding small heat shock proteins, specifically HSP17 and HSP27, were significantly upregulated. These proteins are part of the insect stress response system. This shows that these insects can be a biomarkers, which we can see how much intake of the toxic metal in their system.
So this shows how molecular biomarkers can serve as early warning indicators, detecting stress, and that traditional tests might completely miss.
There's another case study by Apres et al. On the blue mussel Methylis adelis. The mussels were exposed to two different pollutants, which is bisphenol A, a common plasticizer, and PBDE47, a flame retardant. Their proteomic analysis revealed changes in proteins related to stress response, metabolism, and cytoskeletal integrity. Some protein responses were pollutant specific, while others were common to both chemicals. These altered protein patterns suggest sublethal effects that could impair the muscle's normal function. So, this study shows that how badly the effect of pollutant towards our nature, especially in aquatic organisms.
And that helps in real world applications, right? Because if you know which proteins to look for, you can monitor cleanup progress without the needing to dig everything up.
So another case study that cool to be shared for is in a study by Tomanik. Researchers found that marine animals exposed to stress showed similar changes in proteins, like heat shock proteins, like I said earlier, and enzyme for oxidative stress and mitochondrial problems. This suggests that many species use common molecular strategies to cope with changing environments. One real-world example is the Great Barrier Reef. According to Tirukantan et al., ocean acidification caused by excess carbon dioxide is lowering the pH of seawater. This reduces carbonate ions, which corals need to build their skeletons. As a result, reefs become weaker, grow more slowly, and are more prone to bleaching and disease. So this shows that the effect, how important is bioremediation, so that our like rare species would not extinct.
So they applied the proteomic tools to see how the microbes work together to break down complex pollutants. And again, they saw certain enzyme and transport proteins being activated, which is a clear sign that the microbes were busy doing their jobs.
And what's cool is that Proteomics let them see which species were pulling the weight and which proteins were most effective. And then that kind of data can help tweak the microbial mix to make clean up even more faster.
Yep. And it's not just about the cleaning up, it's also about designing better strategies for environmental conservation and restoration based on how these microbes naturally respond.
So like genomics help us find the microbes for the job. Proteomics shows us how well they're performing once they're in action.
Yep.
Oh, it's like watching a team working together instead of just reading the resumes.
Yes.
You see like how they show up, you see who is slacking and who's crushing it.
And together, this tool actually helps us to understand that microbe is not just a tiny creatures, but they are actually a powerful environmental allies.
Alright, so coming up, we'll connect off all of this to how microbes support bigger goals like protecting biodiversity, restoring damaged ecosystems, and building a more sustainable planet. Don't go anywhere.
Okay, we have covered a lot today from DNA blueprints in genomics to real-time protein activity in proteomics. So now let's talk a little bit about what the future looks like.
Honestly guys, the future using microbes for the environment protection looks really promising. With better tech like bioinformatics and AI, we're able to discover new bacteria, microbes faster, and we get to learn about them even in details.
And that means more eco-friendly solution. Instead of using harsh chemicals to clean up the pollution, we can turn the microbiome that naturally do the job to clean soil, toxic water, and even helping the plants grow in places where the lands damage.
Plus, with all this climate change and pollution getting worse, these microbiome tools could become essential. Imagine having microbiome teams designed to clean oil spills and restore coral reefs, tailored based on their DNA and protein functions.
There's also talk about using synthetic biology to improve microbes, not just finding what nature gave us, but editing their genomes so they're even more efficient at breaking down specific toxins or surviving in harsh conditions.
Of course, but that brings us to an ethical question too. Like how far should we go with the engineering life? But that's for another episode.
For now, what we do know is this: microbes may be small, but they are one of our greatest allies in healing our planet.
They're already working silently under our feet, in our oceans, in the air. And with the help of genomics and proteomics, we are finally learning how to listen and work with them.
And that wraps up our episode today for Biopuffcast. I hope you learned something cool and maybe look at microbes a little differently now.
Yeah, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit that follow button, share, and leave a rating.
Yes.
We hope you can help us reach more curious people like you.
Yep. And if you've got questions or topics, ideas for our future episodes, hit us up. We love hearing from our listeners.
Until next time, stay curious, stay green, and never underestimate the power of something microscopic. I'm Aiza.
Azira.
I'm Afifa.
Marcena here.
Signing out.
Bye.